It's not very good, is it? And I mean, that's putting it mildly. What's been so interesting is I regarded the advent of With Love Meghan rather like I regarded root canal surgery. It's one of those things that you know it's coming. You really don't want.
Netflix just made the most humiliating move of Meghan Markle's post-royal career, publicly scrapping her pet project. With Love, Meghan, and distancing itself from the Duchess in a scandal that's sending shockwaves through Hollywood and beyond. What was supposed to be a heartfelt, empowering docuseries has now become a textbook case in how not to run a brand, and how quickly a media empire can fall apart when truth gives way to fiction. Before we dive into the staged scenes, the emotional plagiarism, and the legal chaos that triggered Netflix's decision-make, sure to subscribe to this channel right now. If you're tired of polished PR and want the raw, unfiltered reality behind the headlines, you won't want to miss what's coming next. It all started with a glittering multi-million-dollar deal. Netflix believed they were betting on gold pairing Meghan Markle's fame with their storytelling platform. After the initial success of Harry and Meghan's first docuseries, the company hoped lightning would strike twice. With Love, Meghan was marketed as a personal journey, full of heart, truth, and impact. Instead, it turned into a flaming PR disaster that not even Netflix's crisis team could salvage. What began as a brand-building, passion project quickly unraveled behind the scenes. Production insiders described early chaos, clashing egos missed, deadlines, and a script that seemed less like a documentary and more like a fairy tale filtered through Meghan's lens. But the real damage came when footage reached the review stage, and Netflix realized they had a ticking bomb on their hands. One of the most damning revelations, a heartwarming episode showcasing Meghan volunteering at a children's literacy center. On screen, it seemed sweet, authentic, exactly the kind of content viewers love. But behind the camera, the entire scene was fake. The children weren't local. They were hired child actors, the volunteers, Meghan's personal staff, dressed up to look like community members. Even the donations seen on camera were returned after the shoot. Netflix executives were blindsided. Not only was this a gross violation of documentary ethics, it mocked the very idea of authentic service. To viewers, it was a moment of compassion. To insiders, it was a rehearsed publicity stunt. And it wouldn't be the last. Another bizarre detail. Meghan reportedly insisted on personalized pretzel bags for guests at a fictitious event created purely for the cameras. It was this kind of obsessive image control that began raising internal alarms. A production assistant described the atmosphere as unnerving, saying, "Everything had to be perfect, even the fake stuff." Then came the emotional manipulation. In one pivotal scene, Meghan is shown softly weeping as she holds one of Archie's toys. The moment was quiet, raw, and powerful until it was revealed that the crying audio had been added later. Meghan hadn't cried at all during the original footage. According to a former editor, dozens of similar moments were manufactured in post-production using sound layering, music, and lighting effects to paint Meghan as vulnerable, misunderstood, and deeply human. And yet, that was only scratching the surface. A supposedly personal anecdote from Meghan about experiencing racial profiling in a grocery store went viral until online sleuths uncovered an almost word-for-word match with a Reddit post from 2017. The timing, the dialogue, even the description of the grocery clerk kit was all identical, except Meghan presented the story as her lived experience. Netflix's fact-checkers flagged it immediately, accusing Meghan of what they called emotional plagiarism. For a platform that trades in truth, this was a betrayal. Not only did it call her credibility into question, but it also exposed the production as a curated performance rather than a revealing documentary. This wasn't storytelling. It was deception packaged as vulnerability, and the legal department, they were just getting warmed up. In early drafts of the script, Meghan reportedly made serious allegations against senior royals, especially Queen Camilla and Prince William. One episode accused a royal figure of emotionally abandoning her while pregnant, but when Netflix's lawyers looked into it, they found no witnesses, no documentation, and no timeline that supported the claim. In short, no proof. Attorneys warned the platform. Airing the segment could invite lawsuits from Buckingham Palace. The scene was removed, but trust between Meghan and Netflix had already ruptured. Executives began asking if she's willing to fabricate tears and borrow stories from Reddit. What else might be false? And then came the internal fallout. Production staff began leaking anonymous complaints. Meghan's behavior, according to crew members, was erratic and hostile. She reportedly berated assistants in front of others over minor mistakes and demanded last-minute script changes that contradicted previous edits. One former team member said morale dropped so low that conflict resolution specialists had to be brought in, an extraordinary move for a docu-series when season 2 was greenlit. Many crew members simply refused to return. What was supposed to be a feel-good behind-the-scenes journey had become a toxic, stress-fueled nightmare driven by a star more concerned with optics than authenticity. But Meghan's control issues didn't stop with the crew. She was also alienating her most powerful friends, originally with Love. Meghan was supposed to feature a star-studded lineup of guest appearances. Oprah Winfrey, Ellen DeGeneres, Serena Williams, even Michelle Obama were floated as possible participants. But as the scripts and footage began circulating, something changed. Every single one of them pulled out or refused to be involved. According to one executive, they didn't want their names tied to a vanity project wrapped in controversy. Meghan's reputation, already shaky, was starting to slide. And in Hollywood, when trust evaporates, so does support. Netflix gave Meghan complete creative control. And in hindsight, it may have been their biggest mistake. She overruled seasoned producers, ignored editorial guidance, and rewrote segments to better reflect her truth. One editor called the process a documentary by dictatorship. The result? A show that felt hollow, overproduced, and disconnected from reality. And viewers noticed by the time episode 3 aired, Netflix's algorithm had registered a devastating trend: viewer drop-off. Over 60% of the audience had tuned out before the halfway point of the season. Comment sections, Twitter threads, and Reddit forums erupted with criticism. Words like cringe, fake, and unwatchable appeared again and again. Even longtime Sussex supporters voiced their disappointment. One viral comment summed up the sentiment perfectly. It's less of a docuseries and more of a performance piece, starring Meghan as her own misunderstood idol. The backlash was so severe that Netflix's internal teams began to panic, and that's when the leak happened. An anonymous insider shared a memo reportedly circulated between top executives. The document, dated just weeks before the show's quiet cancellation, was scathing. It read, "We can no longer treat Meghan Markle as an asset. She is a reputational liability. Her content lacks credibility, and the backlash is damaging brand trust." The memo didn't just recommend halting production. It called for a legal review of all remaining footage to screen for potential defamation claims and copyright concerns. It was the media equivalent of hitting the emergency brakes, and the concerns kept piling up. Several scenes in the show featured Meghan's children Archie and Lilibet in what were described as intimate family moments. But upon closer inspection, Netflix found troubling issues. There was no documentation verifying when or where the footage had been filmed. No third-party permissions. No location releases. In some cases, there were even whispers that the children shown weren't actually Archie or Lilibet but stand-ins, used for dramatized storytelling. If proven, that would be a serious breach of child protection laws governing filmed media. Netflix's legal advisors didn't wait to find out. They quietly removed the scenes and issued a directive. No future projects involving the Sussex children would be approved without rigorous third-party oversight. And just like that, the family content, the emotional glue meant to make the series relatable, was scrubbed from the platform. But perhaps the most symbolic collapse came when Meghan's celebrity allies started jumping ship. As mentioned, Oprah, Serena, Ellen all walked, but it wasn't just high-profile names. Even lesser-known production partners began distancing themselves. Why? Because they saw what Netflix finally realized too late. Meghan Markle wasn't just overexposed. She had become untrustworthy. Multiple producers described her as uncooperative, controlling, and obsessed with optics. One recounted how Meghan demanded reshoots of scenes where she felt she didn't look strong enough. Others claimed she threatened to walk off the project if her narrative wasn't preserved exactly as she envisioned it. This wasn't collaboration, it was command. And Netflix executives were left cleaning up the mess. The most damning assessment came from a veteran producer who had worked on both seasons. He said bluntly, she didn't want to tell the truth. She wanted to tell her truth. And when the two didn't match, she made us choose her version, every time. By then, the damage was irreversible. Season 2, originally planned to feature new humanitarian efforts, deeper family moments, and high-profile interviews, was axed quietly. No announcement, no press tour, just silence. Netflix didn't even bother issuing a formal statement. Instead, they let the show vanish, disappearing from internal roadmaps, release calendars, and investor briefings. The message was clear. This was a mistake they didn't want to acknowledge. As one insider put it, "We gave her the steering wheel and she crashed the vehicle. Now we're just trying to tow it off the road without anyone noticing." Behind the scenes, the fallout was deeper than most realize. Netflix had staked millions on the Sussexes. Their partnership was meant to represent a bold, modern shift in the platform's content strategy, but what they got was a PR nightmare wrapped in legal risk. And Meghan, She learned the hard way that controlling the narrative only works when the truth isn't watching. The fairy tale of With Love. Meghan was supposed to show the world a softer, more relatable Duchess, someone who had endured scrutiny and emerged stronger, but what emerged instead was a portrait of someone too obsessed with perception to see the cracks in her own story. From staged scenes and fake emotions to legal chaos and alienated friends. Meghan's Netflix dream didn't just collapse, it imploded. And in the rubble, only one thing is clear. This wasn't just a show that failed. This was a brand that self-destructed. Netflix didn't just cancel a season, they cut ties with the woman at the center of the storm. Because in Hollywood, the only thing worse than bad ratings is bad press. And Meghan Markle, once hailed as a fresh voice for change, is now the name top executives whisper when warning each other what not to do. So where does she go from here? That's the million-dollar question. Or maybe, in this case, the multi-million-dollar mistake. Asterisk, if you want more deep dives like this, unfiltered, uncensored, and based on what's really going on behind the scenes, don't forget to hit subscribe. Hollywood may hide its skeletons, but we're just getting started pulling them out.